Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
Well, our guest today is so creative, and I enjoyed this interview just for fun. I felt like David asked her a lot of really great questions and found myself just enjoying the fun and thinking about her life as an artist, and she travels, and just hearing her story was super encouraging to me. So before we get into this interview, one of the things that she mentions is she receives her first guitar from her grandmother, a red Yamaha. And I think it's so interesting because oddly, that gift sort of shaped her trajectory. And so I thought we could talk about what are some of your favorite gifts or a favorite gift that you received from a grandparent that you treasure still to this day?
Oh, wow. I wished I had some musical ability and can claim that it shaped my trajectory. One of the items I most treasure from my grandfather that he passed along to me was a pocket knife that he carried, and it was a case pocket knife. And he did give it to me when I was much younger. And I think the item that I took from my grandfather was how to care for every item that you own. You don't hold it with disregard. He was of that older generation that lived through the Great Depression, and everything mattered. Everything had value, and you stewarded it. If it broke, you tried to fix it before you replace it. I'm not that way, but that pocket knife and some of those values rub off on me in some stewardship level there. What about you?
That's awesome. Well, you've heard me talk about Nanny Annie before on the podcast. You and Josh had a lot of fun with Nanny Annie. Nanny Annie left me her biscuit cutter.
Oh, nice.
She made these out of this world biscuits for breakfast, biscuits and gravy and well done sausage and bacon on a griddle.
Oh man.
And
what do you mean by well done? Explain that term.
Well done.
You did a great job, or it was cooked well done?
Well done. It must be the sausage is black.
Okay.
Crispy sausage and crispy bacon. I do not like soft bacon. Listeners, if you're coming to the D6 conference and you want to talk to me about the kind of bacon you eat, we're friends if it's crispy, well done.
Okay, listeners, I'm out. See you later. Mary and I are no longer together. Once again, She doesn't like leftovers, and she doesn't like, okay.
If the bacon bends, Ron, then it
still has flavor. It still has flavor.
It's still a pig, and it's oinking. Okay.
Oh no! Now pork has to be cooked well, but if it's crispy, it's like a steak that's well done. It has zero flavor. You're tasting burned. You're not tasting pork.
I am tasting bacon, and I like it on everything.
My goodness.
But my Nanny Annie, she gave me that biscuit cutter, and it sits in my kitchen, and it reminds me of her. But beyond that, she loved to sew. She loved to play the piano. And no, I don't play the piano well or enjoy it, but I do love to sew. And, just kind of like what you said, she understood value differently and managed her time very wisely and differently. My Nanny Annie, just on a side note, I have to share this with our listeners. She was the kind of lady who sat in her recliner in her 80s and would watch the Texas Rangers and have a scorebook and take score of baseball while she sat in her recliner.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Now our listeners are screaming one question you haven't answered, because I'm thinking it. Do you use her biscuit cutter, or is it more ornamental and sentimental?
Great question. Thanks for calling me out on Front Street. Yes, I use it twice a year. Otherwise, I go the canned biscuits route. I'm a mom on the go, and it's better for me to bust the biscuits and pop them in.
Oh man.
I have a lot of jokes about busted biscuits, but I'll save that for another episode.
That is too funny. Now, see, again, you and I are foodies, but I'm learning there's so many areas we diverge. I don't like canned biscuits. I would rather get the biscuits in a bag. The ones that are, and they taste more like homemade biscuits to me. Same type flavor.
I haven't thought to get those. I might have to try them.
There's not a big difference in price, quite honestly. In fact, they're a little bit cheaper now. Well, I don't know. The 4-pack of generic canned biscuits probably still cheaper, but the Pillsbury, it's on par. So anyway, for what that's worth. But yeah, my wife, by the way, has the biscuit bowl. And it's the bowl that contained the flour where she would make it. And for the longest time, we kept the flour. There's still a flour residue, but you know how move after move, you tend to lose those along. And she's always valued, because her mama, as she called her, made the best biscuits for her. I would throw that in there.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, but it is. The cool thing is the shaping of the trajectories based upon those inputs. And by the way, I am not musical. Our son is. He plays a guitar. He plays both electric and acoustic. And I know Yamahas are nice guitars. So this wasn't, it was an intentional gift by a grandmother who probably spotted something there. And thank goodness to her intuitiveness made a huge difference in Rachel's life.
Absolutely.
Are you a big music lover?
Well, no. I mean, I like to sing in the shower, and I like to think I am an artist in private, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you heard me sing publicly, you would run out of the room. I mean, I make a joyful noise, but that doesn't mean it's joyful to the listeners. But I am married to a man who loves worship, and he led worship at our previous church for 16 years. And so we record podcasts and often we do video exchange, and you see in my office we have multiple guitars
hanging on the wall back there.
Yes, that our guitars. He's got a story for every guitar. He's got 5 hanging and 2 in the closet. And there's various times that I come into the house after being away, and he's got his electric plugged in, and he's worshiping, and he loves music, and he loves to connect with God in that way. And I'm excited about today's guest, Rachael Nemiroff, and her heart for worship, and kind of her story of how God opened this path for her to walk and change lives through it, and changed her life. And so we're going to listen to Rachel's interview with David. It's a lot of fun. Hang on till the very end. He asked some really fun questions at the end of the interview. She's got some good nuggets in there, and we'll come out on the other side and dialogue a little bit about her insight.
We are pleased to announce one of our newest titles, Make Up Your Mind, by Michelle Niedert and Denise Pass. Our mindsets matter. Every day we fight battle after battle in our minds. Negative mindsets limit our existence by keeping us bound in unhealthy habits and attitudes, unless we know how to break free of them. In Make Up Your Mind, you will learn about the root behind common mental battles and negative thought patterns. This book focuses on 10 key negative mindsets and gives tips on how to overcome them using scripture and real-life solutions as we adopt the mind of Christ. Each chapter includes a devotional application section and a Counselor's Corner section featuring licensed counselor Michelle Niedert. Make Up Your Mind is available for purchase now at randallhouse.com.
Today, I am joined by Rachael Nemiroff. Rachael is a breakout singer-songwriter with Curb Word Entertainment who has taken the internet by storm. Her 2018 single, Circles, has amassed nearly 500,000 streams on Spotify, and her songs Belong and Temporary are well on their way to that mark as well. Her latest single is called One Heart, Two Homes, and I'm willing to say that not even Taylor Swift puts out new music more often than Rachael. Rachael, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here.
So the Taylor Swift comment really was not that much in jest, because I am amazed by, like, every time I open up Spotify or open up YouTube, you have new music out just constantly. How in the world are you doing this?
Oh my goodness, you're so kind. I love Taylor Swift, by the way. So just shout out. Man, I just love creating so much with my friends, and also too just engaging with my audience. I know they love when new music comes out frequently. So yeah, it's been just me loving getting to, like, provide that for people who want to hear it. And then also I just love creating. So yeah.
Well, I want to start by taking a dive into the origins of your musical journey. So I have to start by asking a question that I have to ask every artist. And that is, do you remember the day that you got your first guitar?
I do. Yes. I was in high school. I was in 10th grade, and my grandma, she bought me my very first little Yamaha guitar. I still have it. It's a red Yamaha, and it's at home in my bedroom. So whenever, because I now have my other ones here, but it's just a very special one to me that I've, like, kept at home. So when I go back, it just brings up the sweet memories. But yeah, I was in 10th grade and she got it for me.
Do you remember the first song that you learned on the guitar?
It was, yes, Britt Nicole, Set the World on Fire. It was the very first song. If you guys know who Britt Nicole is, she was someone who I really looked up to and still do to this day. But she was the first, her song, Set the World on Fire, was the first song that I learned on guitar.
I think mine was either Lord, I Lift Your Name on High or a song by Michelle Branch. Something in the key of G, because I knew 3 chords.
Yes. Michelle Branch, yes, and Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. It's great song.
Same chord progression. Anyway, well, from a musical and spiritual standpoint, when did you begin to realize that this was something you wanted to do as a career?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think I kind of knew, I mean, in 8th grade, if I'm just being totally transparent, for me, the dream was, I want to be on Broadway. And I ended up going to a performing arts high school in 10th grade. And that kind of changed when a friend invited me to their church, and I started getting involved in, like, the youth group and the youth band. And it was there when I realized I wanted to go more into music and Christian music. And then that developed even more when I got down to Nashville. But I always kind of knew at a younger age that I wanted to do something in it. It kind of just has been a journey since then. So ever since I was little, I would say I just kind of knew.
Well, when we listen to your music, we hear your voice, but I know that you do a lot of collaborative work. You collaborate with others for your own songs. You also help write for others. What is that collaboration process like? Because in my head, when I think about, like, writing something, and I'm thinking about, like, writing articles and, books and things like that, that seems like a train wreck of an idea to me, to work with other people. But I know in the music industry, it's different. So what is that? Can you give us some insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say I love collaborating. I know it can be very scary and vulnerable for a lot of people. And it was for me for a period of time. And it still is sometimes, for sure. But I would say, like, with co-writing, sometimes because now I'm signed and I have a publishing deal, I'll get certain things on my calendar where I'm writing with people for the very first time. So you're basically going in with 2 strangers that you've never met, and basically have to kind of spill what's going on internally. And it's a very vulnerable thing, but I will say that's what I love so much about this community in Nashville and the people that I do get to work with, is because it always feels like a safe place. And then I end up, like, meeting so many amazing new friends and, like, connections from that. And then I feel comfortable the next time, like, I end up writing with them. But it's such a cool process, because there's things that I would never think of that other 2 people I'm working with would think of, and they bring to the table. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you think of that? And we end up all using the gifts that we've been given and making something really special. So yeah, I don't know if I explained how the process works fully, but that's just something that I really like about it. Every single person has such a unique gift that they can bring. And one person will throw out an idea, and then you could start playing chords, and then it just kind of magically happens. I don't really know how to describe it well, but that's the best way I could describe it when it comes to songwriting. So,
do you have a favorite song that you have worked on that you have not actually performed yourself?
Like as far as written for someone else?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this artist, and now sweet friend of mine, his name is Lloyd Nix. And I just want to give him a shout out because first off, not only is he super talented, but he is just such a genuine angel soul. And I helped him write a song called Big God, Big Love. And I haven't performed it out. It's his song, and he just has a really remarkable story. And so I would encourage you guys to just check him out. And that song, Big God, Big Love, it's probably one of my favorites so far that I've written for another artist.
Very cool. Well, I saw you recently post on Twitter that a lady at a hotel in a small town recognized you as someone she follows on Instagram. Now, as someone who's in the spotlight and someone who is labeled as a Christian artist, how do you handle that pressure of knowing that people are watching your every step and recognizing you just anywhere you go?
That is so funny. To be honest, I don't really look at myself as someone that's like known, if that makes sense. But I don't know. It really shocked me because I was in such a small town and walking out of this hotel room that this lady spotted me. So you said the pressure, like,
yeah. How do you handle that pressure of knowing, because you do get put in the spotlight and you are in places where people are going to recognize you, even if you don't even realize they're watching you?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. I just kind of live my life. I would say I try to just live like authentically from day to day. And I don't know, I wouldn't say I feel all this pressure, but it's sometimes pressure that I can maybe put on myself, I guess. Mm-hmm. And then when moments like that happen, I'm like, I just love meeting new people. So even I was in this random town and I was kind of shocked. It was still really sweet to be able to connect with this lady. I was still just in shock. Like, she'd come to one of my shows, and this was like several years ago, and she was just visiting family and in town for that weekend. And so I don't know, I wouldn't really say I feel that every single day. I just try and live my life and take the pressure off. So
that, in a lot of ways, that's good that if you're not feeling that heavy pressure, because I know for some people that either can cause breakdowns, cause them to get out of the industry. It can be overwhelming if you let it be. So
yeah. And I would say too, like, one thing I'm thinking about is just staying grounded, I guess, is maybe how I would think about that. It's just having good people around you, because I will say this industry, it can be like high stress for sure, but I would just say make sure you have good people around you, regardless of like wherever you are in life, whatever industry you're in. I think it's so important.
And I wanted to ask you about that. Like, how does, with being in an industry and a profession where you're on the road a lot, what does discipleship and spiritual growth kind of look like on a day-to-day form for you when you don't typically have the normal 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really like debriefing at night, and then also starting my mornings off with, whether that's like a small Devo or something. That's what I typically like to do to start my mornings. And then at the end, like, debrief and pray. But when I'm on the road, I typically like to let my friends know when I'm leaving, because they can't read minds, right? And I think in the past I thought, they'll know like when I'm gone, but sometimes they just don't. And so it's just letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to be gone this weekend, or letting them know when I'm back too. And it's also cool, like, just so we can like check in with each other, because I also have friends who are traveling a lot. And that was something that was really helpful for me this summer, is like having other friends who were on the road. We would check in with each other, pray for one another, encourage each other. And that has really helped me when I have been gone, because I will say, as much as I love getting to do this, and I'm so grateful to God for it, it can get lonely sometimes when you're traveling on the road. And like, I was so grateful when I've been able to have some of my friends out with me, or my mom like came to some of the shows and festivals this summer. But the times where like I didn't have anyone super close with me, I was so grateful for my friends who were praying for me, and I was able to talk to them when I was traveling. So
registration for D6 2023 is now open. For a limited time, you can take advantage of the absolute best pricing for the D6 conference if you register now. The earlier you register, the more you save. Last year's conference sold out, so don't wait long to take advantage of this offer. Join us for the 2023 D6 Conference, April 10th to 12th at the Marriott World Center in Orlando, Florida. This year's theme is all in, all your heart, all your soul, all your strength. Register now at d6conference.com.
We are back and we're talking to Rachael Nemiroff. Rachael, I want to ask you about your new single, One Heart, Two Homes, because this isn't exactly your typical Christian radio single. Can you tell us the story behind that song?
yeah, absolutely. So I was actually on a writer's retreat with some dear friends of mine, and it was the last day of the retreat, and I knew I wanted to just write about a certain part of my story that I haven't really shared before. And so my parents, they divorced when I was around 6 years old. And so I wanted to just share more of that through song, because I think like divorce, it happens so frequently, especially today. And I really wanted to for people when they listen to it to feel like they weren't alone, and to also take the shame off of this topic as well. And then something that I think too that I wanted to share, especially you'll hear in the chorus, is the type of love that God has for us, this unconditional, steady type of love, even with the broken types of love that we can see here on this earth. Like for me, like knowing how much God's love for us is unconditional has been comforting to me through like this situation, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, that's kind of where the song came about, was experiencing what it was like, because my parents got a divorce when I was little, and how that kind of has affected me, and just navigating that journey into young adulthood.
You mentioned the shame that came with that. How did you see God work through that shame and that pain, even if it wasn't just something immediate, but as you've kind of grown older?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, to be totally honest, when I was younger, I felt really ashamed, especially going into church. I would look to my left and look to my right and see these families that were together, right? Like they had a mom and dad and siblings. They all look so happy and perfect. And what I realize is you never truly know what someone is going through. And just because someone may look perfect from the outside, because that's how my family looked, honestly, when my parents were together. Everything seemed like it was perfect, right? We were like the picture perfect family, and you truly never know what someone else was dealing with. And I feel like this is a part of my story to own and like not be ashamed of, because there's so much of it that I couldn't even control. And so I don't know, I feel like the more I've just talked about it, and I go to therapy, that's something that I am so grateful for, and I love it. It's been so helpful. Just talking more about it has taken the shame off of it, and realizing how common this is for a lot of people has made me feel like less alone. So, and has taken that shame
That's good.
Off of it for me. So,
yeah. And I have no doubt there will be teenagers hearing this who are in a similar situation. What wisdom can you offer to teens who are struggling with their parents' divorce?
Well, first off, I just want to say it's not your fault, number one, and you're seen and you're loved, and it might be hard to understand kind of what's going on right now, and that's okay. It's not for you to fully carry the weight of the situation. And I would maybe say to talk to somebody. Like, I know it might seem really scary, but something that was so helpful for me is just being able to open up, even if that was one person that maybe wasn't like my parents, to be able to talk to them, whether that's a youth leader, a counselor, a close friend, and just to have someone hold space for you with whatever feelings come up, because that for me was so comforting. Not someone that was there to try and fix it, right? Just to be able to sit with me in the midst of my sadness or whatever I was dealing with. And that was so comforting to me and has really helped me on my journey. So I would say to reach out to someone, and you're not alone and it's not your fault.
That's really powerful. Well, I want to ask you, what is next for you? Which, if people that don't know this, Rachael actually just wrote 3 songs while we were talking here. Pretty amazing. So what's next for you?
Man, I'm wondering, I'm like, what is next for me? I am working on an EP right now. I'm wanting to put out a worship EP. That's something that has really been on my heart. So I'm really, really looking forward to just writing a lot more for that. I know there's at least one song for sure I know that's going on it, but I'm wanting to start out with just a 4 little simple song EP, maybe expand from there. So just have to stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, I have just a few rapid fire questions for you so our audience can get to know you just a little bit better. When you are traveling, what is your go-to snack at the gas station?
Oh, my go-to snack is Skinny Pop. I love it. Better flavor.
I was looking for something just kind of like fattening and stuff, but you went totally healthy with that.
I know. I probably threw everyone off guard. I love popcorn. Anything popcorn.
Well, we're all a little disappointed with that. No, good answer. Good answer.
Sorry,
what is the most used app on your phone?
Oh, guys, it is not the Bible. I will probably say it is Gmail and Instagram. I'm sorry, God.
What is the most embarrassing thing that has happened to you on stage?
Oh, the most embarrassing thing? Honestly, guys, it's when my voice cracks. I would say, I don't know if I have like a specific moment, but it was definitely this summer. My voice cracked multiple times when I was singing, and it was kind of embarrassing.
If that is the most embarrassing thing, you are doing really well.
Okay. So. I'm like, I didn't trip or anything. Not yet. Knock on
no
wood.
Falling off the stage or anything
no
like that.
Falling off the stage. Yeah.
And finally, I know you put out a lot of covers. You kind of do your own thing with those. What is your favorite cover to play?
Ooh, my favorite cover to play, just in general, or that I've put out?
Either one.
I would say I've done God Only Knows in sets, and I would say I really like that because of the response and the message of the song too.
All right. Well, Rachael, if people want to hear more from you, where should they go?
Yes, come say hi on Instagram. I would love to connect with you, and I love hearing your stories. So I would say that's mainly where I'm at, and I respond back to your messages. So come say hey.
Well, her name is Rachael Nemiroff. Go check out her music now, because in a couple years, when Rachel's selling out arenas across the country, you want to be able to tell your friends, oh, yeah, I've been listening to her music since the early days. Where have you guys been? Rachael, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for what you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so great to connect with you.
All right. I am thankful for people like Rachael, because while I'm not musically inclined, I love, worship time in church. And so the ability to listen and benefit from the creative minds who can put together music, and I'm scared to even talk too much about it because I'll show my ignorance. I mean, Marianne, I play the air guitar and the air drums, and both of them are off key when I play them. Okay. So I can't wrap my mind around it. But you know what I love about her is that you mentioned this in last week's tease part of this, is the way she collaborates, invites other people in. And she did say, you've got to be comfortable and secure and trusting in doing so. By the way, I want to suggest that from a leadership standpoint, we should not make major decisions in isolation. We need to invite other people in to hear how we are thinking, what we're doing, what are the impacts of those decisions, and get collaboration in there. I think those kinds of decisions are much more powerful, especially when you're leading change in an organization. So take it, if you are musically minded, take those principles that Rachel's given us and apply it to leadership, because I see the transferability there.
Absolutely.
Rachel probably hates me for diverting to a different train track after that interview. But, again, that's where my mind goes, is transfer principles.
That's right. I really love the collaboration and just how she framed it. And I want to just say, she mentioned that when you collaborate, that everyone is able to use their gifts. And I truly think, as a leader, a worship leader, an artist, a businessman, a businesswoman, a mom or a dad, you guys, humility that marks a leader transfers into collaboration and valuing other gifts. I think you can become an incredible leader when you hire to your weaknesses, meaning when you are not even hire, when you put people around you, even as a ministry leader, when your leadership team is your weaknesses and their strengths. That's what God says. That's the church. That's how we should operate as the body, that my eyelash has a function with Ron's eyelid.
Oh man, yes. I've never been called an eyelid, but you're exactly right.
The scriptures talk about the body.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is so true. And I'm very thankful for it. So, when I think about that, I realize I love orchestra music. Again, that may not surprise many people in there, but, I love listening to John Williams and a number of other major composers out there. And he has the ability to combine different components. And if you've ever watched some of the major motion pictures that John Williams has provided score to, when you hear his music, it's so powerful. You can picture those scenes from the movies right there happening in front of you. And it's because he uses everything so well in collaboration. I think a challenge for leaders along this line is, if you think you're the only one who can produce good stuff, you're going to remain very small. And you'll not be leading an orchestra. You'll be leading a one-man band. And so I would
quit cutting us, Ron.
I know.
Slicing and dicing.
Well, it is fun. And we've been very blessed at Randall House and D6 Family Ministry to have very gifted leaders. I've heard that from your church, but in addition to what you do ministry with your husband, you're part of this gifted team. And you've seen how God has assembled some people who just think about different parts. You and I were discussing a few weeks back the different eyes that go into looking at major pieces that we produce at Randall House. There's not any one set of eyes that looks at it. Same thing should be true in life. Help our kids when we're doing those debrief from home and they had an activity or an event take place in school. Say, how do you think your teacher saw that? How do you think your principal heard about it secondhand? How do you think the girls in the room saw that? How did the guys see that? Help them to see the various perspectives. I also think that opens up the door for helping them understand the synoptic gospels, all telling the same story, all from a different perspective, but we gain insight there. Wow. Well, I'm thankful for Rachel. I'm thankful for her music. And as we look forward to next week, we were just discussing leadership. We're going to be dealing with quite a leader in his own right. This guy needs no introduction, Pat Williams. He was part of the Orlando Magic for many, many years. Has been part of sports in general and has written, did I remember him saying over 100 books?
That's what
I know. I probably have 4 or 5 in my personal library. I do have his one on Disney. I have a couple of others from him. I was very blessed to have Pat interview me about Toy Box Leadership when it released on his podcast, because podcasts were very new back then. And so I also have a favorite story I tell about Pat. Maybe I'll go into it next week, but I'm looking forward to hearing from Pat Williams. Until then, when you think about music, think about all that goes into it. Think about the giftedness. Think about bringing the right people to the table in your world to shape your family and discipleship. And think about the orchestra and where you sit at it within God's purposeful plan for your life. Till next week, we'll see you, and we're praying for you.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.